Glad to have you. Did you hear any of that? You'd think I know my way around the studio by now. Let's try again. Hello there. Welcome to a Monday edition of the show. I am so glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new and improved Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all, a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the next 2.5 hours, because it's that time again. Time for Monday and Thursday night football to eat into my time. Not that I'm sore about it or anything. 5:30, our coverage starts, courtesy of our friends at Westwood One. Jets and Niners. Should be a good one. Talk about that in a little bit. If you'd like to interact with the show, it's easy enough. Whether you want to text in or call in, the number is the same, 719-247-1313. Now, there is a reason why I, for much of training camp and the preseason, have been saying that it would be best to divorce yourself from the idea that the Broncos are going to win many games this season. One, they aren't talented enough to win as many football games as yesterday was proof of. But two, winning and rookie quarterbacks don't always, in fact, many times they don't quite jive with each other. The focus of this season should be on the development of Bo Nix, first and foremost, with wins being nice surprises along the way. I think Sean Payton yesterday started with that mentality, right? With Bo Nix being the most important thing. Very conservative game plan early. It was like the preseason. The preseason with Bo Nix was training wheels on, going through the cul-de-sac. Very controlled, not a lot of surprises, just leisurely. Nix looked good in that circumstance. Did he not? He didn't. Yesterday, it was time to get him out on the busy street. But the training wheels stayed on, right? A lot of short passes, a lot of getting him out of the pocket to cut down, not just to, give him the opportunity to run if he so chooses, but to cut down his reads, right? There's only a guy or two in his field of vision that he can get the ball to if they roll him out. They keep him in the pocket. There's more receivers available, more processing that has to go on, more opportunities for mistakes to happen. So I thought early on, Sean Payton did a very good job of easing Bo Nix into the game. Then Seattle started to key on it. They took away the running game. They dared Bo Nix to go downfield, and because, in my opinion, the desire to win the football game, which is always there, but maybe overtook the desire to make sure that Bo Nix got out of that game unscathed, the downfield throws started to happen. And those were not good. 3 of his 4 passes downfield should have been, or in one case, was intercepted. Essentially, Sean Payton took off the training wheels and Bo Nix wrecked the bike onto the pavement. That's what him throwing downfield was most of that game yesterday. You saw him stare down receivers. You saw him look confused or indecisive at other times. And what Mike Macdonald, who is a brilliant defensive mind you, how he's going to be as a head coach, we will see. But his resume in Baltimore speaks for itself. This guy is brilliant on the defensive side of the football. What he was throwing at Bo Nix was too much at times for him, and not even the equally brilliant offensive mind of Sean Payton could help Bo Nix in a lot of situations yesterday. And to me, there were multiple times during that game, especially after witnessing downfield throws, where I was like, well, throttle it back. Let's bring it back. Get back to what you were doing earlier. That was a little bit better. Sean Payton didn't really do that. You look up at the end of the game, and Bo Nix sets a record for the most completions by a rookie quarterback in his debut, which sounds impressive. Less so when you account for the fact that he threw the ball 42 times. 42 attempts is an insanely high number for a rookie making his first NFL start. And it did not produce great results, which should be to no one's surprise. 26 of 42, that was the 17th highest completion percentage out of 28 quarterbacks, and now it's 19th out of 30, doing the math with Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff last night. 138 yards, that's 27th out of 30. A really low number for someone that throws the ball 42 times. No touchdowns. He was one of 8 quarterbacks on Sunday who did not throw a touchdown. And he was one of a handful of quarterbacks that threw multiple interceptions. His 47.5 quarterback rating could only beat out the likes of Daniel Jones and Bryce Young. Now, one of the other guys he beat out, and maybe this is where you take some solace and kind of understand, Caleb Williams did worse than Bo Nix in many ways. Right? So even the most gifted passer in this quarterback class struggled in his debut, but the Bears only asked him to throw it 29 times. Bo Nix was statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in the league yesterday, which is a forgivable offense for a rookie. This is not going to be a show where I'm telling you to get out of the Bo Nix business, to give up on him. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think more questions need to be directed at Sean Payton than Bo Nix. That's who I question after week 1. I thought Payton's impatience with how the game was going led him to push Bo Nix too much. And this is the question when it comes to Sean Payton developing a rookie quarterback, which he has never done. It's one thing to burn up Teddy Bridgewater, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston. It's another to do this to a rookie quarterback that is supposed to be your franchise. Does Sean Payton truly have the patience necessary to develop Bo Nix the right way? Or is he just going to keep pushing him and pushing him and pushing him? I know Bo Nix has all those starts in college, but he's still a rookie. And he looked every bit that yesterday. You know what Sean Payton is? Sean Payton's a tiger parent. That's what he is. He's a Tiger parent. The jury has not ruled favorably in that kind of parenting style. And that's what I saw yesterday. I saw a coach that had a difficult time finding the right balance between I would like to win this football game because that's what I do. I win, and bringing along a young quarterback. And moving forward, he has to strike the right balance. I'm not saying coddle Bo Nix the entirety of the season, but this is week 1 and he's throwing the ball 42 times. It sure seems like because of what personal stakes Sean Payton has for this second stint of his career with Denver, that he's going to go full bore. Now, he'd like to do it with Bo Nix, and he'd like to do it with the successful Bo Nix. I'm just looking at that game really from every aspect, not just the coaching aspect. And it's a question I asked a few weeks ago. We need to start changing the conversation when it comes to Bo Nix. It's not, is Bo Nix ready? Everything you have seen to this point says he's ready to be a starter in the NFL, but that still comes with a little bit of patience and a little bit of kid gloves. I think the better question, especially after watching Sunday, is this roster, is this supporting cast, and is this coach ready for Bo Nix to be the starter? Because a lot of indications I got yesterday were no, they are not. And he's the most important thing. They have to do right by him first and foremost. I know it's a proud franchise. It's a proud coach. They're starting over. What happened the last 7 years, those sins should not be visited upon Bo Nix. He's not on that timeline. Broncos fans are desperate for wins. Sean Payton wants to win. I get that. But it has to be about what's best for Bo Nix. And yesterday, I did not see what was best for Bo Nix. And that has to be calibrated moving forward. I'm not out on Bo Nix. I thought, especially him battling the way he did, I thought there were some things to like, but he's not ready to win the Broncos football games. Early on in the season, it's about his coach and his teammates helping him win the football game. And yesterday, I saw a rookie quarterback being asked to win the Denver Broncos a football game, and that should not be asked of a rookie quarterback in game 1. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Bo Nix's debut for real, the grand opening, as opposed to the soft opening that occurred in the preseason. You'll hear from both Bo Nix and Sean Payton during this program. But it is the Monday after a full weekend of football, and there were some storylines in the college game. And whatever you feel about the Broncos after yesterday, it can't be worse than what Buffs fans may be feeling about Saturday. We'll get into that next here on Extra Sports 1300. Attention football fans, it's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs. Hooters of Colorado Springs has craveable wings, ice cold beer, plenty of big screen TVs, and the world famous Hooters girls, making it the ~1 franchise in the league. Tonight, catch the fan filler, 10 boneless wings, fries, and a drink for only $16.59. Get into Hooters of Colorado Springs for all the football action. There's a lot of football action this weekend, both in the pro and collegiate ranks. Now, Deion Sanders said something this past week leading up to the Nebraska game that he feels, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he feels connected in some way to Matt Rule, being that they both took over their respective programs at the same time. So Saturday was as good a time as any to kind of, check on the progress. If these two took over at the same time, started the race at the same time, how is it going? Well, my observation of Saturday is that Matt Rule has a team that is strong in the trenches, first and foremost, commits to and has success running the football, now topped off by an extremely talented quarterback, but he doesn't ask too much from him. On the other side, Deion Sanders continues to have a poorly coached, undisciplined team that either cannot run the football or abandons it at the first sign of trouble, and has a quarterback that, while he is extremely talented, is asked to do way too much at times, and after is very quick to point the finger.
How many times did Raul get touched? There was able, of course, whenever you're able to run the ball consistently and whenever you're able to, then that opens up the pass, But it's just like you got to understand what your team good at. So it's like, why would we keep running the ball if, okay, we out there and we get in a situation where it's a must get and we don't get it?
Shador's not totally wrong in his assessment. I don't think he's 100% correct, but he's not. The sentiment behind what he's saying is probably felt by a lot of people who watch that football game. That being said, you cannot say that. You cannot do that. There is already a belief that there are essentially two teams within one. There's Team Prime, which is Shador Sanders, Shiloh Sanders, and Travis Hunter, and there's the Colorado Buffaloes. And if anything goes right, it's inevitably those three on Team Prime that will get the credit. And if anything goes wrong, the blame will go to the Colorado Buffaloes. I'm not saying that actually exists, but what Shador said doesn't really help. And when Deion Sanders piggybacks off of that and says this, it doesn't help squash that idea either.
We just never got it going until it was too late. It seemed like we just never got it going. Protections were a problem. I'm trying to be polite and say it because, if I can say the same thing you're thinking, but if I say it, you say I'm throwing my guys up under the bus. I'm not doing that whatsoever.
Just by saying that, we know what you're doing. You're calling them out. You're saying it wasn't on Shador. It wasn't on you. It wasn't on Pat Shurmur. It was on the offensive line. So even when he's saying, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, he's kind of throwing them under the bus. Deion Sanders promised a quick turnaround. Right? And what you are realizing is this will be just as painstakingly slow as any major rebuild that has happened in college football. And the thing is, Deion's only got those three guys, well, Shiloh not even now for a while after he broke his arm. But he has Shedeur and Travis for one more. This is it. What is Colorado going to do? What is Dion going to do when Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are gone to continue this rebuild? Is there another quarterback behind Shedeur that's coming in that's going to be better? Is there a player better than Travis Hunter that Dion is going to bring through the transfer portal? There's a lot of reality crashing down around the Colorado Buffaloes football program on Saturday. And it's what makes you wonder if this is going to ultimately work out. Whether this is going to be seen through till the end. And the thing about this is, I'm not even talking about the players necessarily. I mean, what Shedeur said, he can't say. And that was a terrible decision he made with the football backed up in his own end zone. Okay, but I get it. Like, it was back to that old song and dance of Shedeur not having any time to throw. I get all that. I actually think that some grace or some leniency should be extended to these players. Again, they're all coming through the transfer portal. It will take time for them to mesh. I actually saw some things, especially in the second half, where I go, Buffs could get better. I think the arrow's pointing up for this season. How many wins that gets them remains to be seen. But I think these players can get better. Here's what I continue to question. The players can get better. Is Dion going to get better as a head coach? Is Pat Shurmur going to become better as an offensive coordinator? I'm going to cut some slack to guys who are playing college football at the Power 4 level for the first time, a little bit of slack. What I come away with watching that football game is, man, this team is not prepared. They do not handle adversity well. Dallin Hayden averaged like 6 yards a carry. And he touches the ball, 4 times? Why doesn't a seasoned veteran coach like Pat Shurmur, say what you will about his ability, the guy's been around. I seem to remember in Denver, he couldn't stop running the football. And now after 4 carries where a guy gets over 6 yards a carry, that's done. No more running. Dion blew any chance that the Buffs had to score before halftime. With his clock mismanagement, how do you just let the clock tick down like that? 10 seconds went off of it before he called a timeout. How is that on automatic? I think the double-edged sword here with Deion Sanders is that you don't have the talent to compete with the Nebraska without him. And Saturday would have been far worse if this would have been Carl Durrell and the roster he had out there, right? But I question how much better this talent that they've accumulated can get with this coaching staff, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Ron Livingston, like the second half, we'll see if that's real. But this was a theme throughout last year. A coaching staff panicking, abandoning the run, putting all of it on Shedeur Sanders' shoulders. No wonder the guy lashes out any chance he gets. Think about the pressure that is under Shedeur on a weekly basis. Deion Sanders keeps saying he's in it for the long haul, but the way he coaches is very much about instant gratification. The Buffs were not going to get back in that football game on one drive from Shedeur Sanders. Once the defense started to buckle down, make some stops, calm should have been restored. And even when things were going crazy early in that football game, it's the coaching staff's job to calm down the players. And it felt like Pat Shurmur and Deion Sanders were as frazzled as the team was. And you can't have that in that game. And in the negative stuff that's gets said, you want to brush it off as preposterous, but then you just watch these games and you're like, who's calling the offense here? Is it Shedeur or is it Pat Shurmur? How is this team being coached? Is it to spotlight and highlight Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders for NFL scouts, or is it to win football games? I'm not saying that both can't be accomplished, but it's like what I said about Sean Payton in handling a Bo Nix. You have to find the right balance, and it seems like more often than not, CU will just go, Shedeur and Travis, go. I refuse to believe that Colorado is that overmatched from a player-to-player perspective. Give Matt Rule a ton of credit. He is starting to get that program right. Dylan Raiola has tied everything together. That team is going to make some noise in the Big Ten. I don't know if they're I don't think they're Ohio State. But they can win some games. They can get Nebraska football back in the national consciousness. And that's a credit to him. I refuse to believe that 1 through 22 of the players that were on the field, that CU is that overmatched. They might be that outcoached. And I think Saturday was as much, if not more so, a referendum on the coaching of the Colorado Buffaloes than it is the talent. Although it does look like Nebraska overall is a better football team. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Buffs loss to Nebraska. Coming up next, kind of a no good place to fit this in on a football Monday, but there is some significant local basketball news that broke over the weekend. And I would like to give my thoughts and get yours as well on that coming up next. Taking your thoughts on a Monday following a busy football weekend, and many of you want to talk about what happened Saturday as opposed to what happened Sunday, meaning CU Nebraska as opposed to Denver Seattle. 719-247-1313 is the number, whether you want to text or call in. Let's go through some of these text messages because they are very opinionated and they're the kind that I like. Even if I don't agree with your opinion, although many of your opinions I agree with in this regard. Tucker says Shermer is doing exactly what Deion wants, and that's for his kid to be the focus. Brett says, I will tell you what Deion is going to do after his boys are gone. He is going to leave with them. And from the 719, the Buffaloes have plenty of problems, but Pat Shermer is poison. You know what Deion Sanders needs? The perfect thing for Deion Sanders, I've decided this. He needs like a Chip Kelly. Why is Chip Kelly at Ohio State? Like Ryan Day can handle it. Chip Kelly needs to be in Boulder. What Deion Sanders needs is a genius offensive coordinator with a proven track record of success, and he needs to just let him do whatever the hell he sees fit to do. Obviously, Shedeur is going to be called upon a lot. That's obviously going to be the case. Travis Hunter will have plays drawn up for him. They'd be silly not to spotlight those two players, not to go through them. But I gave you the rushing numbers. Dallin Hayden was not bad running the football, and they gave up on it. And you just wonder who's running the offense. It's great that Shedeur is smart enough to be able to make play calls at the line of scrimmage, and that's something that should serve him well moving forward. But you wonder if that extends all the time. And you heard Shedeur's sentiments. He wants them to abandon the running game because he doesn't think it's any good. Well, it's a coordinator's job to say, well, wait a minute. Yes, you're the star. Yes, you're the best thing about our football team. But, like, we're doing some things, and the game has calmed down a little bit. We don't have to get all 28 points back in one foul swoop because we can't. Let's calm it down. Let's try to run the football and see where that gets us. And the Buffs just didn't do that. And that's what I'm saying. I don't look at CU from a talent perspective that much different. And Deion Sanders brought this talent to Boulder, so he has to give credit. But that doesn't make him infallible. It doesn't mean that everything he does is right just because he does a good job of recruiting. There's two halves to this job, and one half he's pretty dang good at. And the other half, he has yet to show me that he is any good at it. And maybe he's not. And maybe he should just be this CEO type marketing genius. That's fine. But then don't task Pat Shermer with running your offense. You got to make a better hire. Maybe he has something on the other side of the football. But it would be one thing if this was not a state where we got to see Pat Shermer up close and personal. We know what he is. We know he's not great. And then you throw in the panicky nature of the head coach, the bad clock management. It's not a good combination right now. And yes, there's some nonsensical stuff like today. The band can't play the fight song because they have to play Shador's rap song after like he scores a touchdown. Like, come on. I've defended the Sanderses against some of that kind of stuff. But I think there is a legitimate criticism of the way he coaches this team on Saturdays. And you do have to wonder if he's not striking the right balance between wanting to get guys to the NFL, namely Shador and Travis and Shiloh, and doing what is best for the football team. Like, as that game wears on, it's kind of like, well, no duh, Nebraska's getting to Shador Sanders. If you felt like there was no chance that the Colorado Buffaloes were going to run the football on you, then you just pin your ears back and go after Shador. Last week, it was, well, we took what the defense gave us. And how could you complain when Shador throws for 443 yards? And now this week, it's what? The protections weren't good. Shouldn't be all the more reason to run the football? Coaching was as big of an impediment to the Colorado Buffaloes beating Nebraska as their talent was. More so. And that has to be fixed. Or else this is going to be a long conference season just like it was last year. Now, I find the timing of this Nuggets news over the weekend to be a little curious. You know, the Broncos are known around these parts for doing a pretty good job of kind of hijacking anything, the news cycle from the Nuggets. They've done this in the past where you're like looking and like the Nuggets are going to do something and then all of a sudden the Broncos make some kind of announcement. Like, you can see it. You don't have to be in the media to see this. The Broncos, with a very good PR staff, do a good job of making sure that the news cycle includes them. So I look at the news of Jamal Murray's extension coming out on Saturday, like the day before the Broncos opener. What are we trying to do here? Clearly, they're not as good at it, because if they were better at this, they would release that information at like 1:30 or 2 or 2:30 on Sunday. I actually don't think that's what it's about. Nothing seems to get business done like the desire to flip the news cycle, not away from the Broncos. But I mentioned this last week. What you and I have known for a while, that Calvin Booth and Michael Malone do not see eye to eye on how to become a dynasty, has now made it national. Zach Lowe on his podcast, that is consumed by a lot of NBA people, pointed out the rumblings. And I can't help but think the timing of Jamal Murray's extension is not coincidental. Not seeing eye to eye? What are you talking about? We just locked up Jamal Murray. We're in lockstep. That's what it felt like. The timing of it. But it's done. But it's done, and you were wondering if it would get done, and it gets done. Although I don't think that the Nuggets had a choice. The time to trade Jamal Murray was 2 years ago. What are you going to get for him? You've won a title. Now your coach has thrown around the dynasty word. Like, what are you going to get to make people feel like what Michael Malone promised, or at least said they were striving for, is still possible. You have no choice but to lock up Jamal Murray and hope that he takes on the challenge that both Calvin Booth and Michael Malone presented to him, which is the one thing these days that you feel like Calvin Booth and Michael Malone are in lockstep on, is wanting more out of Jamal Murray in terms of his conditioning, in terms of preventing injuries, working his way back from injuries. That's what you hope here. You hope that he doesn't feel disrespected now because he got paid, got his max extension. Now it's time for you to do a little something for us. Because the fact of the matter is, there is not a player that the Denver Nuggets could conceivably acquire that would give them a better chance to win than the Jamal Murray of 2 years ago. But that guy didn't exist last year. And he needs to get back. You saw some glimpses against the Lakers, but it wasn't enough. This is what the Nuggets have to hope for. Because I did not see any other scenario other than them signing him to the max extension. And I see no other legitimate path to another championship, or at least an NBA Finals appearance, without Jamal Murray. Put him in your trade machine. Tell me what trade the Nuggets could actually get done at this point, given what you saw against Minnesota, given the fact that Calvin Booth and Michael Malone each called out Jamal Murray in the postseason press conference, while Josh Kroenke was saying we have a responsibility to Nikola Jokic. Tell me what trade you could finagle and get done that fits all of that, that gives the Nuggets a better chance to win a title than if Jamal Murray can just do what he's being asked to do. That's the simplest answer. Right? What Jamal Murray did 2 years ago was awe-inspiring. What he did in the bubble was unbelievable. I don't want the Nuggets to get rid of Jamal Murray, but I have some serious questions about how often that guy is going to show up over the course of the next 4 or 5 years. And I think that the Nuggets have those concerns, and that's why this thing took as long as it did to get done. But in the end, they don't have a choice. You know, the guy that I am thinking about the most in all of this? Nikola Jokic. How is he feeling? Like he's never going to get to Giannis levels or LeBron levels and demand that the front office do this or do that. He's not going to ask for a trade. He's just not wired that way. But the guy wants to win. Remember those comments when he said about cloning himself? Like Jamal Murray was included in that. He didn't say, I wish I could clone myself and Jamal Murray. He said, I wish I could clone myself. Or maybe I'll clone myself. The guy that was right there by his side, the Stockton to his Malone, or the Malone to his Stockton, given that Nikola Jokic is the better passer. If I may be so bold, not to say they're at this level, but it's the example most people identify with, the Pippen to his Jordan. That guy was MIA last year. And if he would have been there, the Nuggets would have been back in the NBA Finals. I don't know if they would have beaten Boston, but I would love to have seen them try. I think that the Nuggets are a bit boxed in here. With the Michael Porter extension, I think there was some sort of a choice there. And they said, we're banking on this guy. With the Nuggets, they're still saying we're banking on Jamal Murray. I just don't know if they had any other recourse. But it is done. And now the next one is Aaron Gordon. (719) 247-1313. I know we're all in football mode. I am too, but that broke over the weekend, so I'm like, gotta fit it in somewhere. I just checked the futures odds, by the way, for Denver. Plus 800 to win it all, plus 385 to win the West on the Circa Sports Colorado app. They like Denver a bit more than some other books that I've noticed. Season will be here before you know it. You can lock in that futures bet today, knowing Circa Sports strives to keep as little money as possible on large market bets like futures, especially compared to other sportsbook. Other ones will get you in with free bet offers, but that might be a tactic to distract you from the fact that maybe their odds aren't the best that you're going to get other places. At Circa Sports Colorado, their odds are their promos, and they don't limit players based on their winnings. Other books will do that, yes. It's about the experience. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Lower holds, tight money lines, all that stuff. It's about the experience with Circa Sports Colorado, just like it is with Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. In fact, it's the same people. Download the app today where it's better for the better. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Coming up next, you'll hear from Bo Nix and Sean Payton on the highly anticipated regular season debut of the rookie quarterback. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Monday. Ryan Kaufman with you. A reminder, you can watch the show live on a daily basis if you so choose. All you need to do is follow us on one social media platform. We'd like you to follow us on all of them, but just one will get the job done. Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, the handle at XTRA Sports 1300. If you'd like to take it a step further and interact with the show, you could call me up or text in at 719-247-1313. And when you do call in, I want to give you the highest priority, take you as soon as I can, because I know your time is valuable. And that is the case with Patty, who wants to talk about CU, and then we'll get back into the Broncos. Patty, good to hear your voice. Fire away on the Buffs.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you what. When Deion's two kids leave CU, he'll be going out the door with them.
Okay.
It's quite obvious. It's quite, you know what? Looking at Deion and those two kids, I lived in Hollywood for 30 years. I've seen this before, where you have parents that are guiding their children into stardom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the kids can never do anything wrong. Just kind of like what Deion's doing with his two boys. Did we see him reprimand his son on the interception? Not at all. Not at all. And I mean, the idea, they've got the worst offensive line I've ever seen. What, he couldn't go out? I mean, if he had to recruit offensive linemen, it would mean that he would actually have to work with them. And that's not something that he'd rather do. He'd rather stand around with his funny little outfits, and proselytize and talk about his two kids. He's not going anywhere. As soon as his two kids leave, he'll be going out the door.
But that's the question I was going to ask you, Patty, because where is he going to go? Because I think he is getting exposed to a degree. So not coaching. All right. I see what you're saying. Because
he'll be a color guy.
Yeah, because that's my thing with him, is that the more this goes on, the more I'm like, well, is he setting himself up for a better job? Because that was the worry initially, right? And even Paul Feinbaum recently is trying to get him to USC. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Clock mismanagement, not developing the players, the lack of perhaps accountability for Shador when he does something wrong, and yet others get criticized, like all that kind of stuff. Schools see that. And schools that are serious about winning a national title will be like, man, we would love the publicity. We'd love his ability to get guys through the transfer portal. But there's another side of this that if we're in the business of winning national championships, I don't know if that Deion is the right guy for the gig.
Right, because he doesn't. So far, how many years has he been there?
This is year 2.
Years? Okay, name another kid that he's developed. Name an offensive lineman he's developed, or a wide receiver. Right.
Well, right. Well, it takes time to develop, certainly, but you would look at a Jimmy Horn. They got him through the transfer portal. They got a lot of their linemen from the transfer portal. It goes to your point, though, that it's, one of the knocks on him is that he's not pounding the pavement as a high school recruiter the way some of these other coaches do. Well, because he wants to get the finished products. And part of it is, this team's got to improve quickly, and I get that, but there's, again, another part of it that it doesn't seem like Deion Sanders. They went hard after Jordan Seaton. They're going after this quarterback, Juju, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of depth there, and it just, some of the cracks are starting to show here, I think, in year 2.
Well, compare Deion and CU with the team that just whooped their butt.
Yeah.
And the head coach there. Well, you compare Deion's offensive lineman with the offensive lineman in Nebraska. gee, who's got a better set of offensive linemen? Who's got a better set of defensive linemen? They bring in a freshman quarterback. This kid said, kid looks great. Looks like he should have been there the whole time. No big hype. No big, bingo. They just put him in. All the other pieces are in place because the head coach and his assistants went out and did the job, which is recruiting and training and teaching these kids. And I don't personally think that Deion's got it in him, period.
Well, if he does, and thank you for Patty for the call more often. If he does, he better start showing it. Because the Big 12 season is not that far away. And they can get by on the arm of Shedeur and the unicorn-like nature of Travis Hunter. They can get past CSU. But if you looked at the AP poll, I know after Florida State, nobody wants to put any stock into the AP poll. But Kansas State, better than Nebraska. Oklahoma State, better. Utah, better. It's not getting easier from here. It's going to get more difficult. 719-247-1313. And that's why I said, if Deion Sanders feels connected to Matt Rule, they came in at the same time, I think it's fair to look at the progress and say one program is progressing and the other one is looking like these are just 2 extra games from the 2023 season. Even Dillingham, who Deion Sanders also mentioned this coming week, they just beat Mississippi State. Deion brings a lot of good to the table and a lot of things that Colorado needed at the time, still needs. But there's more to it. And if he's really going to be successful in Boulder, that stuff has got to be addressed. He's got to start doing that stuff too. And 2 games in, haven't seen it. 719-247-1313. Getting back to yesterday's big debut for Bo Nix on a day where, let's be fair, quarterback play across the NFL was not at its peak unless you are Sam Darnold, which tells you how nutty yesterday was that Sam Darnold looked about the best of any quarterback in the league. But on a day of some questionable quarterbacking from a lot of different places, Bo Nix had one of the worst days. The most pass attempts by a Broncos quarterback in week 1 since 2011. Not rookie. A quarterback, period. Just that sentence doesn't make sense. I know that the Broncos have been through it a little bit. Peyton Manning played in that time. Bo Nix in game 1 is throwing more passes than Peyton Manning did. That sentence doesn't hit right. And it kind of illustrates my point that I don't know that Sean Payton looked out for Bo Nix as things started to get a bit hairy yesterday. His 3.3 yard average, this from Nick Kosmider, his 3.3 yard average on his passes was the worst for a Broncos quarterback since Tim Tebow. And that's a quarterback in Broncos history that you do not want to be mentioned with. I know that one time against the Steelers, trust me, if you're a Broncos quarterback and the other guy on the list is Tim Tebow, things have not gone well. And Bo Nix admitted that yesterday wasn't great.
It was a challenge. It was a tough day. It was, they didn't make it easy on us, that's for sure. But like I said, we competed. We went down and scored there at the end, and gave ourselves a chance to win. And we were, an inch away on a, almost batted ball that Riley Moss made an incredible play on that they just, made a better play. So it's tough. You got to give them credit, but we battled and we continue to fight. And that's, those are the emotions of today.
And look, his compete level, I said to start the show, his compete level, to use a very quarterback term, his moxie. I think you liked what you saw from that he did battle. He did fight through that adversity, and that will serve him well moving forward. I'm not down on Bo Nix. The problem is Broncos fans have been hearing for many years now of a team that's plucky and fights and doesn't give up and has a chance if this went their way and if this didn't happen. Like, it was too late. Okay, Riley Moss makes that play. No guarantee the Broncos go down and score. Look how many points they put up. So it's like there's that. And even Bo Nix's touchdown was for a backdoor cover. It wasn't. The Broncos have done this. They've made scorelines look cosmetic. It was too late. The Broncos had lost that game. So what Bo Nix is saying about himself, I think that's what you take and say that's good. But it's little consolation when Broncos fans have been hearing for years about a plucky upstart team that doesn't give up and plays till the end and has a chance if just this one thing didn't work. But I forgive Bo Nix for it. Again, he doesn't have all the knowledge and all the scar tissue from Broncos years past. He's just giving his honest assessment, and that's okay. But that does little to make Broncos fans feel better because they've been dealing with that for the better part of a decade now. But back to that pass average thing with Tim Tebow, and I know it's not a list you want to be on, but I didn't have a problem with the early play calling. I think what yesterday required was more creativity within that conservative play calling, if that makes sense. Where are the RPOs? Where are the, misdirections, pick play, like where I don't think Sean Payton went in his bag enough with those short passing plays. It was very vanilla, very predictable early. It did a job. It eased them into the game. But once Seattle started to get wise to what they were doing, I think Sean Payton should have stayed conservative, but given Seattle different looks. And I think his answer was Bo Nix throw it downfield, and that was mixed results at best. And I think what that was to a large extent was, hey, RPO, that's another decision that Bo Nix has to make. I think he was trying to make it as plug and play as he could for Bo Nix. I think that was kind of the thought behind that. Sean Payton, with the way yesterday went, had a little bit of a different explanation.
He gave us a chance. Our protection was average at best. And I just think, and I believe this, that we have to, at one point in the game, I came to the bench and talked to the receivers and said, let's go. I don't know how many drops we had, but man, let's help this guy.
I don't know how much more he can expect. Like there's a couple of plays there where you do put it on the wide receiver. Maybe that one over the middle where Cortland Sutton was open, didn't make the catch. Maybe that's one. Maybe there are a couple other times. But this was the Broncos wide receiving core yesterday, or at least the receivers that they leaned on. Cortland Sutton, not a number one wide receiver. The Lions' third best receiver from last year, Josh Reynolds, and a 7th round rookie. That's who they relied upon. How much more do you expect? These aren't game breakers. This is why I kept saying during the whole Brandon Ayuk drama, why aren't the Broncos getting into this? Broncos need Brandon Ayuk. They need a bona fide number one wide receiver. And they don't have it on this roster. So, yeah, they're going to leave something to be desired in a game. But I don't know what else Sean Payne's expecting. I don't know. Where's Marvin Mims? Where's Marvin Mims yesterday? Could he have helped? One target the entirety of the game. I barely saw the guy other than on that stupid kickoff that is blowing up in the NFL's face. What a dumb idea that was. But, like, where's Marvin Mims as a receiver? All Sean Payton did last year was lament how he couldn't get Marvin Mims involved. And here we are, game one of a fresh new year. You got rid of Jerry Jeudy. You got rid of Tim Patrick. And Devon Vele is getting 8 targets and Marvin Mims is getting 1. What happened to Lucas Kroll that we're all supposed to find out how good Lucas Kroll is? I'm not saying these guys move the needle that much, but they're at Sean Payton's disposal. Look, you could argue his point about Bo Nix giving them a chance to win. The guy did throw 2 interceptions. Right? So he cost the Broncos at key times. That was a bad throw to Cortland Sutton. And he was actually quite fortunate. He didn't have 3 or 4 picks yesterday. So I push back a little bit at that assertion, but I think you look at yesterday and say that, kind of to Sean Payton's point, the team let down Bo Nix more than Bo Nix let down the team. If for no other reason, then you're not expecting a ton out of Bo Nix. But that's what I keep going back to. This team they have a roster that needs a quarterback to lift them up. And one day Bo Nix might be that quarterback. He's not that quarterback in week 1. I don't know where people are getting this idea that the Broncos are somehow more talented and better than they were a year ago. They're not. But that wasn't supposed to be the reason for these moves. It was supposed to be to rebuild this team, to set this team up to be better 2 or 3 years down the line. Justin Simmons didn't fit with that timeline. Quinn Meinerz did. Pat Surtain did. That's why they got extended. Cortland Sutton doesn't. That's why they won't extend him. This is not a great roster. And you saw that yesterday. And Bo Nix isn't ready to elevate the play of his teammates. He needs the help. And he didn't get it. And I don't think he got it from Sean Payton either, which was not a part of his commentary there. I am a little bit surprised they couldn't run the football, though. I'm not surprised about the weapons. I am not high on the Broncos wide receiving core. I'm just not. But I do like their running backs, and I do like their offensive line. So I was a little curious yesterday why they couldn't run the football more effectively. Bo Nix was their leading rusher. That can't happen. He's not Michael Vick. He's not Lamar Jackson. He has no business being the Broncos' leading rusher. So that was a bit curious. And I think even Sean Payton was a little flummoxed by the idea that they couldn't run the football and didn't have any immediate answers after the game. My best guess, Seattle wasn't scared of the Broncos going downfield. They knew they could cover the receivers one-on-one. They wouldn't get beat deep. They saw Bo Nix throw more interception-worthy throws than possible catches for the offense out there. They weren't scared of the Broncos going downfield. So you creep up a little bit. You stack the box. And Seattle's a good defense, led by a great defensive mind. I think that's why. I mean, if these are the Broncos' best players, they got to find a way. Javonte Williams has got to find a way to outrush Bo Nix. This offensive line, which is very well compensated, needs to do a better job. But I think a big reason for it is Seattle just was not worried whatsoever that they were going to get beat down the field by the Denver Broncos. And who could blame them? 719-247-1313. Continue to take your thoughts on the Broncos yesterday. And you look at, won't look too far ahead, but doesn't this week's game and the Tampa game in a couple weeks feel a bit different watching football yesterday? Really don't think Sean Payton's team is going to get off to the good start that he was hoping they were. Not that I was predicting it, but did you see TJ Watt? Did you see Baker Mayfield? Do you think Bo Nix is going throw for throw with that version of Baker Mayfield? Getting ahead of ourselves. Focus on Seattle. Plenty of time this week to move on to Pittsburgh. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we go back to the college football slate. Air Force did something on Saturday they have not done in a while, and no, it's not a good thing. Welcome back. Drive Time Sports on a football Monday presented by Hooters of Colorado Springs. If you're looking for a place to watch New York and San Fran tonight, Hooters of Colorado Springs offering the fan filler, 10 boneless wings, fries, and a drink for only $16.59. This is not a place where we have grown accustomed to seeing Air Force. They haven't suffered a loss as early as they did on Saturday since 2018. That was to Lane Kiffin's Florida Atlantic team, and it was on the road. The last time Air Force lost this early in a season at home was 2013, omitting the 2020 pandemic goofy season. So it's been a while that we're talking about an Air Force loss this early in the season. And I also don't think we're totally accustomed to hearing Troy Calhoun talk like this.
It's at every place. It's not only, a back or a receiver or up front. It's coaching. It's all of us. We bear that responsibility, and the willingness to say, we're going to get so much better at the details. And for the number of guys that we have in there, we got to get them to grow. We got to accelerate, just their development as football players.
Execution is the given with Air Force, right? When you think about Air Force football, that's the given. We know that they're going to execute. We know that they're going to be disciplined. We know that they're going to do their thing. There are times where they're just not going to have the players to match up on a week-to-week basis. That happens. We understand what it's like to be a football team at a service academy, but the execution of what they want to do offensively, well, and defensively, but the question about Saturday is on the offense, and really the last 2 weeks. The execution has been a given, and I think it's wrapped up in the bigger picture here with Air Force. There's just so much with this football program that we've taken for granted. Right? And maybe what we're seeing now brings a better appreciation for just how difficult it is for Air Force to be competing at the level they've been competing at the last few years. They just can't establish the one thing that everything with Air Force stems from. That fullback inside run game. They haven't been able to do it these first couple of weeks. And that's where everything comes from. That's where everything opens up. And they aren't getting it, which puts more pressure on the pass game, which, as much as we could talk about John Boucher and his ability to throw the football, because he does have the ability to do it, it gets them. It's not what Air Force wants to be. 20 attempts, 20 pass attempts in a one-score game. That game was one score virtually the entire game, the vast majority of the game. One score, and yet 20 passes. That's not Air Force football. And this is, I actually think that Air Force has very little choice. This isn't somehow one of the longest tenured coaching staffs in college football all of a sudden forgetting their identity or falling in love with something. Watching that game against San Jose State, this is out of necessity. How else are they going to get the yards? They just don't have the thing right now that is what their entire identity offensively has been. And if you don't have that, then you can't really showcase John Boucher's ability to throw the football. Now you depend on it. Now you have to get it in order to move the ball downfield. And honestly, you kind of understand why it's not happening for them offensively. They were already one of the most inexperienced teams in college football. And they played yesterday down multiple receivers, including one of the few guys that actually returns from last year's team, and Jared Rosno. Still don't have him. And they were down 2 fullbacks yesterday. You know, Troy Calhoun had to really work this team this offseason to just figure out who he can trust, who he can rely on, who's going to be in there once the season begins. And, you know, now you had 2 receivers down to injury before you even started the season. And I don't know, do these injuries get picked up, where they get picked up and everything. But I don't think I'm making a huge leap to say maybe a more arduous lead up to this season could have led to some of these injuries. But it's like you have a team that has so little experience. The only thing you can do is get them more experience, work them harder, work them more. And that's the big thing. Whether the injuries happen in the offseason, whether they happen the week leading up to the game, whether it's because they slipped on a banana peel on their way to class. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The bigger thing is the inexperience of this team offensively is their biggest problem. I mean, is it any wonder why the defense looks the way it does? Their secondary is full of guys that have not just played for Air Force, have made big plays for Air Force. The front 7 has enough experience that this defense could be the best in the Mountain West when all is said and done. But that's where all the experience is. And right now, Air Force is in a race against time. Because the only way that you help an inexperienced team is by gaining them experience. In college football, there isn't a preseason. They got the one game with Merrimack that we know why they schedule week 1 the way that they do. And then it was off and running to the Mountain West season. Now, if that 2018 season is any indication, the last time they lost this early in the season, that team ended up with 5 wins. I think that there's a lot of recalibration going on with this Air Force team because there was a lot of discussion about, and look, I was not saying anything different than a lot of people, right? Well, it's Air Force. It's Air Force. Look at what they've done. Like, they'll figure it out. Like, I didn't think that they would be as good as they were last year, but there was, again, this taking for granted with this team that is just like, oh, they're going to win up until here, And then we'll see this game's a little bit tricky, but we know on the other end, they'll get bowl eligible easy. You know, maybe they compete in the Mountain West, maybe they don't. And it's just like, no, this program is going through a hard reset in terms of their personnel. And you got to kind of change the way you look at this team and what your expectations are. I think right now, I fought this battle for years, and it sounds blasphemous whenever I say it. I'm not trying to make it. I understand how important it is to beat Navy and beat Army. I understand that. I'm not trying to minimize it. All I have said over the years is it's a more impressive feat to compete in the Mountain West, given all the disadvantages Air Force has already built in. So, yes, win the CIC trophy. Absolutely. That means a lot to everyone. Not saying don't win the CIC trophy, but there have been many years where Air Force can do both. And I've just simply pointed out that, hey, competing for a Mountain West title, given the landscape of college football, especially over the last couple of years, like, to me, that's a little bit more impressive than beating a team at their station with the same disadvantages. So I've never said I'd rather them win this, or I'm just saying if they have a chance to go for this, then go for it. And it would be even more impressive if they could pull it off. Now I think you're really honed in on the CIC trophy. Right? It's not to say that one loss in the Mountain West completely precludes the Air Force Falcons for being there when the season ends. Right? But right now, I think it's figure these things out before Navy. Right? And it's not a great time in the schedule to do it because you got Baylor this weekend. You get a bye week, which I think comes at a really good time for them. And then you got Wyoming, which has not been good, but Laramie has been a house of horrors for this team over the years. And then you got Navy. And Navy is the lesser. It's really building up to Army, right? Because of how last year went, because of how these teams stack up, I think it's Mountain West. Okay, still go for it. Still hope that Air Force can make a run here. It's not like their schedule is a gauntlet, but I think they got to get this right before Navy, and they got to get it more right before Army. And it's time. It's just time that this team needs, and it's the one thing that they really don't have. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Air Force's loss to San Jose State. Who would have thunk? Well, given their opponent, I would have thunk, but about the only football fans in the state of Colorado who are happy today are Ram fans. It's a change of pace. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. 719-247-1313 is the number if you'd like to be a part of the program. Chris said, I went to the Falcons game Saturday. Horrid offense. It's not. I looked. Giving up 17 points would have gotten last year's Air Force team 9 wins and maybe a 10th. They actually scored 17 against Navy. Given the way that game went, they could have scored more if they needed to. So the point is, if your defense holds an opponent to 17 points, you should probably win the game. And if you don't, something is wrong. And something is wrong with Air Force. Inexperienced team is banged up. It's not a good combination. And now you got Baylor. Let's see. Clyde's in on a couple of different subjects. First, Broncos. Is there any stat on the number of times Seattle blitzed Bo Nix yesterday compared to the average? I got to look. I did not see, but whether they blitzed him or not, they certainly keyed in on what the Broncos were doing and were not feeling any threat of them going downfield. I'll look that up, though. See how often they blitzed him. Says, I agree. Sean Payne immediately expected way too much, way too early from Nix instead of building Bo's confidence with shorter passes to begin with a blitzing defense. And then reacting to Patty's call at the beginning of the hour, I agree completely with him about Prime's focus on Shedeur and not the whole team. Also, that Prime will probably follow his sons after they graduate or will spend a lot of his CU coaching time flying to his son's games. Or does CU have to release Prime after a short time if performance is poor? That is a place where we have not been quite yet. Would CU fire Deion Sanders? No. Because here's what you have to keep in context here. Like, CU, compared to what they were, is much better with Deion Sanders. Right? The health of the program, the attention the program is getting, the talent they're bringing in, that faucet gets turned off when he leaves. I'm sorry. I don't know who you're going after. I mean, if you fire Deion Sanders year from now, 2 years from now, whatever, you're going to get a Kalen DeBoer to come there. Like, I think here's perhaps the predicament that CU is going towards. They hit a hard ceiling with Deion Sanders, whatever that is. Bowl eligibility, maybe 8 wins, 5 wins, whatever it might be. They hit a ceiling, knowing a lot of programs would make a coaching change to try and take the next step. They know that they regress without him. What part of what Deion is doing is some other coach going to say, well, I want to pick up where he left off? The talent goes away. The donor money goes away, at least to the degree they're getting it. I want to stay away from, anything having to do religious, given what happened to somebody else, but they had to make this deal. They had to hire Deion Sanders, good, bad, or indifferent. They had to, because they were just going nowhere. And I think they know full well that it is Deion that ultimately says when this is over and not CU. When he's ready to go, wherever it might be, that's who's making the call. It's not CU, because a lot of the good that Deion has done, and let's not throw all that away and say that he hasn't done any good for the program, because he absolutely has, all that goes away. Maybe you could get a better X's and O's coach, maybe, possibly. Not getting the guy to bring in the attention. Hard to imagine that there's a better recruiter that you're going to bring in. So they're in for a penny, in for a pound. That's where CU is. And they got to hope that the deficiencies that Deion Sanders and his staff have shown get corrected. And the next time to do it is Saturday in CU. Tom says, man, those Bears look good yesterday. Offensive juggernaut. I know, right? Wait, pick sixes and punt return touchdowns count as offense, don't they? But that's my point, and I'll get into it after the top of the hour. Yesterday is not about Bo Nix. Right? Not only did every rookie quarterback struggle, or the three, I suppose. So many quarterbacks struggled. You'd be hard-pressed to find the quarterback that impressed. Joe Burrow was garbage. Like, it wasn't great quarterbacking. Yeah, no, Caleb Williams, he's got some work to do. I think it will happen this year for him. I didn't necessarily think didn't have to happen week one. But hey, Bears won. Bears won. And I know you're doing this, Tom, because you're feeling pretty good about yourself right now. How about that Jacoby Brissett? How about them Pats? Biggest surprise of week one. RIP to many people's Eliminator challenge. I went with Buffalo. And I nearly got eliminated. 719-247-1313. You can see fall coming up, right? The official start of fall coming up. And while it doesn't feel like fall quite yet, it's coming, and the weather's going to turn, and it's not going to be great golf weather, great hiking weather, great biking weather. And maybe you've let your arthritic joint pain keep you from doing those things that you love to do when the weather is so beautiful here in Colorado. Well, I'm telling you that there's an alternative. Maybe you've been a little bit hesitant about some of the old ways of treating that pain, whether it be surgery, steroids, pain pills, QC Kinetics, advanced regenerative medicine. This is something you need to check out if you're tired of that arthritic pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder. The local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are experts in these amazing treatments. There are tens of thousands of satisfied patients across the country, many of them right here in our own backyard. You can enhance your joints, improve mobility, and get back to doing the stuff you love without pain, without drugs, without surgery, and without downtime. It's at least worth the free consultation. Take action to get lasting joint pain relief from help from QC Kinetics. 719-347-1988. 719-347-1988. QC Kinetics. 719-347-1988. Hello there. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this fine Monday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or through the Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. Bottom of the hour. Our coverage of Monday Night Football from Westwood One begins. Jets and Niners. And I don't want to wait to bring you this bit of news. Christian McCaffrey is out for tonight's game. No Christian McCaffrey. He's been dealing with a little bit of a calf issue. Is it a tight calf like Russell Wilson has? Is it torn calf, twisted calf? I don't know. But he is out tonight. Adjust your fantasy lineups accordingly. Adjust your bets accordingly. And I'll let you know what this bit of late breaking news has done, if anything, to the line for tonight's game. In the meantime, though, here are the three stories that are driving the show. All right. You know where I'm going with story number one. Let's talk about Bo.
It was a challenge. It was a tough day. It was they didn't make it easy on us, that's for sure. But like I said, we competed. We went down and scored there at the end, and gave ourselves a chance to win. And we were, an inch away on a almost batted ball that Riley Moss made an incredible play on that they just made a better play. So it's tough. You got to give them credit, but we battled and we continue to fight, and that's those are the emotions of today.
There's the synopsis from the Broncos rookie quarterback. And I can't help but feel a bit of symmetry between yesterday and the last time hope sprang eternal as the Broncos were preparing for a week 1 game in Seattle. Only for that optimism to take a bit of a hit, because it did yesterday. 26 of 42 for Bo Nix, 138 yards, no touchdowns through the air, 1 rushing touchdown, 2 interceptions as the Broncos fall to the Seahawks 26-20. But much like that game in Seattle 2 years ago, I sit here on a Monday with more questions about the head coach than I do the quarterback. Sean Payton will blame the lack of a running game. He'll blame drop passes from his wide receivers, which he's not making it up. It happened. But I think he should throw himself into the mix. Given that stuff was happening, he should have fought the urge to press on with Bo Nix throwing the football, especially downfield. 42 pass attempts is too many. It's too many. Caleb Williams didn't throw the ball that much. Jaden Daniels didn't throw the ball that much. 42. I don't think that's Sean Payton. I think he started off with the right idea. Keep the training wheels on. And then his desire to win the football game took over. And seeing that they couldn't establish a running game, just had Bo Nix sling it. And the results weren't great. Yeah, you love the plucky attitude. You love the guy battling and running for that touchdown. That's all good. I'm not trying to dissuade you. I'm not trying to dissuade you on anything, Bo Nix. 42 pass attempts is what I'm trying to dissuade you of. That's not a good number. And that's the question I have. After that game yesterday, I wonder if Sean Payton has the patience to truly develop Bo Nix the way rookie quarterbacks need to be developed. Because I saw a guy that was pretty impatient. And a guy who let the desire to win overtake what really, I know no one wants to say this, but I will. The most important thing is making sure that Bo Nix is progressing the right way and developing. That's what it is. That's the most important thing. It's not the Broncos winning football games this year. And I wonder if he's just going to burn up Bo Nix. Oh, didn't work out. Toss him to the side. Find another quarterback. As much as he loves Bo Nix, wouldn't put it past him. Not a promising start in terms of Sean Payton, developing Bo Nix. I think that Bo Nix showed some things that you can be excited about. I don't know why there are so many people down on Bo Nix after yesterday. People jumping ship. Like, what Sean Payton said was real. They couldn't run the football. They didn't have wide receivers making catches, which is not a surprise. They got rid of Tim Patrick. They got rid of Jerry Jeudy. It's the third best Lions receiver. It's Cortland Sutton. It's a 7th-round rookie. What do you expect? This team isn't ready to win. So the best thing you can do is develop the quarterback so one day he can lift up this mediocre roster. The problem is, early on in the season, Bo Nix needs them more than they need him. Or Bo Nix needs them the same amount. I thought Bo Nix did as well as you could ask. But 42 pass attempts, that is way too many. Gotta throttle it back. Or you're going to burn this guy up. Here's story number 2.
We had some spurts and some great moments. I mean, we had some timing routes that we timed right up, but the way we started is just not indicative of who we are. And we just never got it together. It just, I don't know, if just, sometimes you have those games, sometimes you have those days, and it was just one of those games and days.
That is Deion Sanders, who unfortunately is singing a familiar tune because there have been a few of those kind of days. The bad day to have a bad day. And when I listened to him talk after CU got smacked around by Nebraska, I think what he's saying there is as much, should be, I don't think it is, but it should be as much about him and his offensive coordinator than it is about his players. Part of the responsibility of the coaching staff is to settle down the players. Deion Sanders didn't look settled when he was letting precious seconds tick off the clock at the end of the second quarter. Pat Shurmur wasn't exercising patience and calm when he completely abandoned the run when Dallin Hayden was actually running the football quite well. Maybe this is just a day where I feel like going after the coaches more than the players, but I'm kind of the same mind when it comes to the CU players. I'm not down on them. I know they're more talented than the team last year. But they got to be coached up. And we can't keep looking back at these games and questioning whether the worst thing about CU is their coaching. And I wonder that. And you have Shedeur after the game putting his entire team on blast. And it's like you wonder why people think there are two different teams, that there are two different classes of citizen within the Colorado Buffaloes program. There's Shedeur, Shiloh, and Travis, and there's everybody else. Shedeur Sanders is launching a pass downfield at the end of the North Dakota State game, and Deion Sanders is laughing about it. Oh, that's just because he's such a good kid. Dude, you got to get more on your quarterback. Especially after the comments that Shedeur made after the game. It's like, I don't believe everything I read about the CU program. Like, they're not allowed to play the fight song after Shedeur scores a touchdown. I'm not going to buy into that stuff, but it's hard not to buy into the idea that there is a certain treatment that is extended to a few players and not the rest. That's not good coaching. One day, Shedeur and Travis are going to be gone. Shiloh's already on the way out with his unfortunate injury, and what a blow that is to the Buffs defense. They're going to be gone, and then what are you going to do? It's got to be some coaching in Boulder, and I just don't. And what Deion Sanders needs is the best offensive mind that he could possibly afford. And that is not Pat Shurmur. Not even close. If you're going to be the CEO type, if you're not going to get too in the weeds with the coaching, as it seems like Deion Sanders feels like that's the right place for him, okay, then you better hire some terrific coordinators. And that dude that's running his offense, we know he could have asked any one of us. Yeah, bad night to have a bad night. but a good night to kind of compare and contrast the progress of Matt Rule and Deion Sanders, given that they both came in to their current jobs at the same time. I see one team that's progressing, one team that's improving. I see one that's basically the same as they were last year, despite having more talent. Why aren't they better then? I think I just answered that question for you. Story number 3 today is a little bit away from the football side because the Denver Nuggets just decided to drop an announcement that Jamal Murray signed his max extension this weekend. And the timing of it, I don't think is coincidental. Just a couple of days prior, Zach Lowe on his very popular ESPN podcast is bringing to a national level what you and I have known for many a week here locally. Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, they don't seem like they're seeing eye to eye. So turn the news cycle, say, look, we're in lockstep. Jamal Murray, sign max extension. Yeah, but he didn't have a choice. You didn't have a choice. You're not going to get equal value for him in a trade. You certainly can't afford to lose the guy. Nuggets were boxed in, and I didn't think that they had much to do other than to sign him to this max extension. And now the hope is, hey, we're rewarding you. We value you. Right now, you need to pay us back a little bit. Right? Listen to what Calvin Booth and Michael Malone said in that postseason press conference. Take it to heart. Be that guy you saw 2 years ago as much as you can be. Because the admission here is the Nuggets don't win without that Jamal Murray. But the guy that seems to be keeping that Jamal Murray from reemerging is Jamal Murray. So hopefully, with this piece of business done, with Jamal Murray being compensated every single dime that he is entitled to, that now he takes it upon himself, just like he did when they rewarded him with the extension the last time. Right? Everyone was saying, oh, Jamal Murray, I don't know, came up pretty small against Portland. They signed him to the extension anyway, and eventually he rewarded them for it. We don't have till eventually. We have right now, this season. This is a massive season for the Denver Nuggets franchise. Some very difficult decisions are going to be made if this team falls flat like they did a season ago. And no one except the guy wearing 15 on his jersey is safe. It'd just be so much easier if Jamal Murray was just the guy he was 2 years ago. And Calvin Booth and Michael Malone seem to know how he can unlock that guy all the time. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, to recap the story of the last couple of hours, Christian McCaffrey out tonight for the San Francisco 49ers. How does that affect the line for tonight's game in Vegas? And what are we expecting from the long-awaited reemergence of one Aaron Rodgers? Can we agree that injuries suck? Just like, I know we don't see eye to eye on everything on this show, in society. Can we just all agree that injuries have sapped some of the excitement out of this season, especially for a couple of fan bases? Jordan Love, which, by the way, NFL, come on. You're having him play on a soccer field. Like, they can't leave what a disaster that was down in Sao Paulo. These guys can't leave the hotel because it's too dangerous. So, first of all, why are you sending people to a place that's too dangerous to leave the hotel? Second of all, you make them play on a different surface, which I can hear friend of the program, Lee Steinberg, in my head talking about the playing surfaces that these guys have to play on, and you're playing on a soccer field, which is not the same surface as a football field. And wouldn't you know it, it took all the way till the end of the game, but one of the game's up-and-coming stars is now out for at least a few weeks with an injury that he sustained on a soccer field that is most known for not being a football field. Good news, though, I suppose, on the Jordan Love front, they're not putting him on IR, so that means they believe he at least has a chance to come back within 4 weeks. But that does turn to the reality of Malik Willis being their backup. And even he came in and slipped. Wonder if Sean Payton hit up Matt LaFleur and was like, hey, heard that Jordan Love got hurt. You know, my quarterback that I just made inactive, remember how good he played against you guys? Come on. Conditional 5th rounder for Zach Wilson. Come on, Packers. So Packers will not have Jordan Love for, it seems like, at least 3 weeks, and then, reevaluation going on. And then you have tonight's news that Christian McCaffrey is out for the San Francisco 49ers. And then Russell Wilson may not play week 2 because of his tight calf, which, by the way, just start Justin Fields. I know nobody wants Justin Fields to start against the Denver Broncos. Okay, you want that. Russell Wilson versus the Broncos. Sean Payton wants it. Russell Wilson wants it. I get it. I watched Justin Fields yesterday. I watched that Atlanta-Pittsburgh game the whole way through. They're not getting more out of Russell Wilson than they got out of Justin Fields. And with Justin Fields, you feel like there's more. Right? Maybe, possibly. The upside. There's some upside with Justin Fields. There's none with Russell Wilson. You got your excuse. Boom. Tight calf. Soft tissue. Man, these things last weeks. I've seen it happen before. Not quite right. We got to go with Justin Fields again. I know they're not going to make him keep him the starter, but they should. But anyway, back to tonight. Speaking, though, of that Atlanta-Pittsburgh game, everybody's different, but I watched Kirk Cousins, and I wondered if we need to lower the expectations on Aaron Rodgers, because Kirk Cousins was flat out not good yesterday, and you can argue who's better, Nick Bosa or TJ Watt, but they're both elite. And like TJ Watt just destroyed Atlanta and was all over Kirk Cousins in that game. And I wonder how much of Kirk Cousins coming off of an injury had to do with it. But then I look at this game and I'm like, they still have Breece Hall. They still have an elite defense. Now you throw Christian McCaffrey being out into the mix. The line was at 4.5. It's now down to 3.5 with the Christian McCaffrey news. I think the value is with New York. Even if Aaron Rodgers is not, what Jets fans are hoping for him to be, there's other stuff there that I think give the Jets a chance to win tonight. But yeah, certainly some things moving here just a little less than an hour away from kickoff. Where I got that line moving to 3.5, Circus Sports Colorado. Pulled it up, and this is the go-to app. I've shopped around. I've dabbled in other places. And the folks at Circa told me this. They're like, go ahead, keep looking around, shop for the best lines. And I keep coming back to Circa Sports Colorado because they make it their stated goal. They want to have the best lines because the best lines lead to the best experience. And that's really what the folks at Circa are about, whether it's the resort and casino in Las Vegas, whether it's Circa Sports Colorado app, it's about the experience. They want it to be better for the better. So do the same thing that I did. If you have another sportsbook app, go ahead, download the Circa Sports Colorado app and just compare on a Monday night, on a Thursday night, on a college football Saturday. See which lines are the best. Circa Sports is confident that you'll be doing your betting with them more often than not. Consistently tighter money line splits, lower holds. That's what Circa Sports Colorado is about. Download the Circa Sports Colorado app today, where it's better for the better. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. It has been my pleasure to serve you today. A lot going on, and Bo Nix, CU. It's already CU-CSU week. CU tried to lower the temperature on the Nebraska game. Let's see if they can do it with Colorado State coming up this week. Air Force has got Baylor on Saturday. And I didn't even get into a lot of week one. I was so focused on Bo Nix and everything else, the local aspects. So many storylines coming out of week one in the NFL. May get into some of those tomorrow. But football back in full effect, which makes me very happy and should make you happy. In fact, here's more proof of football being in full effect, because coming up, Westwood One's coverage, Monday Night Football, Jets, Niners, enjoy. And I'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.